Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of AudioPhiles with Biz Lifestyle. I am Biz. This is smooth talk, no filter, good energy as always. So shall we begin? Let's get into the topic and inspiration for this episode. The inspiration behind this week's episode is the toxicity of insecurity and how it affects us all. So let's jump right in. Let us begin the episode by stating that insecurity is something that either directly or indirectly impacts us all. Whether there are certain things about our individual selves that we would like to work on and improve upon, whether there are people in our close proximity who happen to be insecure and they project that energy outward, whether we have past traumas that were rooted in insecurities that we have overcome and that we're continuing to make progress on, whatever the case may be. Sometimes insecurity can bring about negativity in the sense that it affects the way that we're able to connect and relate to one another. Sometimes it affects the way that others treat us. I believe that it is important to accept and embrace that while insecurities or having insecurities can be something that is natural, but what is unnatural is allowing insecurity to take control of your life and have a negative impact on your character in a way that dims your light and prevents you from bringing forth the best version of yourself possible. Insecurities do not have to define you, and insecurities or having them or recognizing them in your individual self are not excuses. And it's not necessarily, in my opinion, something that we should shy away from. But what it is a goal for yourself. It's a way that you can make improvements, that you can set long-term and short-term goals on a journey of self-mastery. Insecurities are just that, the beginning of a journey, in my humble opinion. We are all impacted by the reality of insecurity, but it is our responsibility to channel that energy and allow it to make us better. You know, whether you are male or female, young or old, insecurities are a reality. So let's discuss some examples of how insecurities can present themselves in our lives. Insecurities can come in any shape, form, or fashion, regardless of your status, your ethnicity, nationality, where you live, your gender, your presentation, your orientation. Insecurities affect us all in the following ways. Insecurities can come in the form of your appearance and your confidence, the way that you present. Could be your weight, it could be your skin tone, it could be a specific physical characteristic about yourself. It could be the way you speak. It could be, where you live, what you drive, the amount of money that you have access to. It can be your education level. There's so many different things, right, that can define an insecurity. It could be something quirky, like the way you laugh or the way you smile. You could almost be insecure about anything. But I think one of the first ways that we can embrace and begin to love ourselves and make improvements is to just accept ourselves for who we are and love ourselves for who we are, but with the desire to want to make improvements. Some things are physical, but some things are just psychological. And it's not so much about necessarily changing your appearance or something that's tangible that you can hold in your hand. It's more about your point of view and your perspective. So I just think it's important to point that out, just to be patient with one another and to be kind and to understand that you never know what somebody's going through and you never know what's going on in someone's mind. So just give people space and grace and give people the same energy and space to be themselves as you would want for yourself. It's important. That's empathy. That is being tolerant. That's being patient. And that is being respectful. A live and let live mindset, if you will, allowing each other to be our authentic selves while on a journey to be the best version of ourselves possible. For me, what it boils down to is ambition, and a desire to be the best version of myself possible, but while not putting an unrealistic expectation of perfection on myself as I'm on that journey. That's really what it comes down to for me. So let's dig deeper and talk about toxicity as it can relate to insecurities within ourselves. Initially, that feeling of recognizing a certain feature or a characteristic about ourselves that we don't particularly like. Sometimes that's something that we notice within ourselves, but it's very typical that insecurities are formed within our individual selves because of an outward opinion of us or because it is brought to our attention by someone else. First and foremost, self-love is important in that regard because you have to know that someone else's opinion does not necessarily make it fact. So be careful of how other people's point of view or someone else's opinion of you has an impact on what you begin to think of yourself. So keep that in mind. What one person doesn't like about you, someone else will love about you. And in my experience, insecurities tend to develop because of that feeling that we connect to that we had in that particular moment when it was brought to our attention that there may have been a less than favorable, trait about us, and someone took notice to it. Embarrassment and just a feeling of belittlement for me has been a lot of the driving force behind how insecurities were developed. And I understand that that's not necessarily everyone's experience because sometimes we aren't developing insecurities within ourselves because we were teased. It's something about ourselves that we noticed that we didn't like. And maybe that happened because we were making the mistake of competing and comparing ourselves to others. It is very possible to have a respect for or even an admiration for someone else without downgrading ourselves, which is why it is important not to compete and not to covet and to not idolize anyone. Never idolize. Competition and comparison are the thieves of joy. And it's a beautiful thing that we are all unique and that we're all different. Everyone has their own specific gift, and each of us as individuals have characteristics about us that make us special and that make us exotic. So comparison is the thief of joy. Always keep that in mind. And we're never looking to idolize anyone. But sometimes, subconsciously, you'll make that mistake of comparing. And if you notice that this person who is in a place in life where they seem to be successful on the outside, they seem to have it all on the outside. When you compare certain traits or characteristics about yourself to that person, if they don't line up, then you'll begin to think that there are things about you that you need to change. And that's just not true. As long as those traits that exist within you aren't harmful to you or others or aren't toxic to yourself, or don't look at it as not good enough. Take inventory of yourself. Always look to grow and always look to do better, but never from an aspect of comparison, right? So if it was brought to your attention a specific trait or characteristic about yourself in a moment of embarrassment, that may have developed an insecurity within you, whether that was at school or in social circles or as you were moving throughout the world, maybe even in the workplace. You might have had an embarrassing moment or someone brought something to your attention that they found funny or comical and other people laughed, or maybe you had an embarrassing moment on a date, or you were shy around someone that you liked, or like I said, you were watching a show on TV, you were scrolling online, you saw certain characteristics about someone that you respect or admire, and you noticed that you didn't have those same traits. That makes those people different. We are one of one, and that's how we're designed to be. We should never make the mistake of developing opinions about ourselves based on someone else's view. And then there are also times where insecurities can develop because we were in pursuit of a goal and that goal, for whatever reason, was not met. But for me, I've learned over time that either you win or you're successful or you learn. I don't look at losses or things not turning out the way that I originally planned as a failure. So I've learned over time that if for whatever reason I was unsuccessful at my first attempt, or if the initial plan didn't work, I'll go back to the drawing board and I'll just try again. Either you win or you're successful or you learn. So I look at it as more of a learning experience and not so much as a loss. Because again, losses kind of have a connotation of comparison to me or competition to me. And I try to stay away from that. I'm only competing with myself. That is all. I'm not competing with anyone else, just me. So once I kind of came around to that way of thinking, it helped me, just in the sense of my self-image and a healthier way of being in pursuit of my goals as I'm on this journey to become the best version of myself possible, not competing with anyone and not beating myself up, not taking away my self-worth, keeping my self-love intact, and understanding that, insecurities are something that we all battle with, but it's how you use that energy to make you better and to perhaps even inspire someone else is really what it's all about. Like, that's what defines you and your ability to overcome. How you can use what you go through to inspire people, like how you deal with imperfection, how you deal with something that didn't work out the first time around. For me, it is not necessarily how you fall, it's how many times you're able to get back up. That's how I define my greatness. That's what helps me build my confidence and my self-image. So, as not to veer too far off the path, let's begin to talk about toxicity and how toxicity can be connected to insecurity. Because for me, having a feeling or an insecurity is not necessarily toxic. But when you allow it to control you and have an adverse effect on your character, that is where the toxicity comes in. Please comment down below and let me know if you can relate, if you've ever had the experience of interacting with someone who was deliberately and overtly insecure, whether that been someone in your family, in the workplace, in a personal relationship or friendship, etc. Comment down below, share your experience if you feel so inclined. For me personally, I've dealt with insecurity more in the workplace than anywhere else in my life. Allow me to paint you a picture. So maybe you have someone who was ridiculed in their past. They have past traumas. They come from a family where, them being loved and their confidence being built up and, them learning their importance in the world was never instilled in them. So they grow up and they age, but they never elevate, they never mature, and they never deal with those traumas of the past. If that person finds themselves in a position of power, it's very highly likely that because they are insecure in their character, not have a few insecurities, but they're insecure in their character, that they're going to abuse any authority or any power that they have within their professional role. I've experienced that for myself personally in the workplace. People looking to be disciplinarians, people looking for attention in a way that's negative, people using their power to assert themselves, people looking to take respect as opposed to people looking to earn respect. Respect is earned. Especially my respect in the way I give it, you could never take it from me. It has to be earned, which for me, that's the only kind of respect that you want, right? Natural, organic. I see value in you. You see value in me. We don't necessarily have to be best friends, but there's a respect there and appreciation for what we offer to the team. That's what it's all about for me. But I've dealt with, unfortunately, coworkers who wanted to set themselves apart in a way that wasn't healthy. They wanted to take credit for other people's ideas, other people's work, other people's efforts. They wanted to be exalted. They exalted themselves. They used the shortcomings of others to pedestalize themselves. We've all experienced it, I'm sure. And I've experienced it so much that I can pretty much, pinpoint it. So therefore, I know how to give those people grace. And I have learned how to move within circles that way in a way that doesn't have a negative effect on me. It doesn't, feed into the toxicity of their insecurity, but I try my best to continue to perform at a high level with class and with dignity, and, just continue to move forward in my role without being negatively impacted by someone else's toxicity. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of effort and life experience to be able to move that way. But when you're in the workplace, it's almost kind of like your immediate family. You don't get to choose your family. You don't get to choose your coworkers necessarily. You can put yourself in a position to hopefully be able to move around, but that's what it comes down to. You're trading your time for money. You're in a role, and you're expected to be able to work in concert and work in unison with people towards a common goal. These aren't going to be people who are like you necessarily, or it's not always going to be people that or that you're comfortable with, or that you even enjoy them or like them necessarily. But the tolerance has to be there, the patience has to be there, and you still have to be able to do the job effectively. Management and leadership is not going to want to hear that you couldn't do your job because you don't like so and so. They're not going to want to hear that you still want to collect a check, but I'm not able to do what you're paying me to do because I can't get along with so and so. It's just not going to be considered acceptable. Always be sure to be in alignment, to be centered within yourself. Don't react on emotion. And as much as you possibly can, without allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, use your discernment to be able to maneuver until you're able to move on to something else. So that's my perspective when it comes to that. Just be yourself, stay true to yourself, focus on you and what you can control, focus on your output, focus on, you doing the job at a high level, and don't give your energy away, or don't allow someone else's toxicity or insecurity to bring you out of character. Because a lot of times with toxic insecurity comes manipulation. I'm sure we've all heard the term throwing stones and hiding your hand. People who have toxic insecurity within them tend to throw stones and hide their hand, meaning they'll provoke a situation or set you up to watch you struggle, especially if they're in a position of authority. And that's mainly what we're talking about, right? Because again, we know you can have coworkers that are insecure in a way that's toxic, but they don't have as big an effect on you or your performance if they're not in leadership positions. But it's especially difficult within the workplace if they're in a position of leadership, right? So people who are toxic with insecurity tend to throw stones and hide their hand, meaning they'll put you in a position where it makes things more difficult in the workplace for you than they need to be. And if you overreact, if you come out of your character, if you allow yourself to be provoked, because they're manipulators, and this is probably isn't their first time doing something like this, they're going to know exactly how to play it. They're going to play victim. All of these kind of tie into each other. Toxicity, insecurity, manipulation, a victim mindset, like they tend to be cousins. You know what I mean? They go hand in hand. So these are things to definitely be aware of. And once you find yourself able to maneuver in a healthy way around this and still do your job, eventually you're going to find a way that you're able to, remove yourself from that situation, whether that be a promotion or a transfer to another department, or you may just leave the company totally and find another opportunity elsewhere. And you definitely want to maintain your reputation, and it's only going to build your character and make it easier to overcome other adversities in life that you may encounter. So be aware of the toxicity that comes with insecurity. Ensure that you're not allowing that energy to manifest itself within you, but also be ready to readily identify those toxicities in others so that you can move accordingly. Let's take a quick break from the episode, and we'll be right back. I'm Biz of Biz Lifestyle, and I'd like to take this time to thank everyone who's been tuning into the podcast. It is much appreciated. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, please do feel free to drop that in the comment section here on YouTube. You can also send an email to askbizlifestyle@gmail.com. That is askbizlifestyle@gmail.com. If you have any episode ideas, if you'd like to give any feedback, or if you just want to say hello, you can find me on Instagram at @𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒖𝒓 𝒁𝒑𝒔𝒖𝒓. That is 𝒁𝒑1212 on Instagram. Again, thank you so much. Appreciate your support for the channel. And let's get back into the episode. And we are back discussing toxicity, insecurity, how they correlate and some of the ways that we can work within that and how we can embark on a journey of becoming the best version of ourselves without allowing insecurities to have a negative effect on our character, right? So let's talk about some steps that we can take. If we are having feelings of insecurity, what are some things that we can actually implement so that we can ensure that we're channeling that energy in a way that's positive? First and foremost, self-love. Self-love is key, all right? Self-love will ensure that you're not beating yourself up about things that aren't perfect. Self-love will put you better in a position to look to make improvements on yourself without condemning yourself or expecting perfection, all right? It's great for your confidence and it's inspirational, right? So self-love is the first order of business when it comes to insecurity. The next step, gratitude. Just making sure that your gratitude is always intact. If you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, check out episode 1 of the AudioPod. Gratitude is the seasoning for your life. It'll be helpful and it'll tie into this episode as well, but you'll want to always keep your gratitude intact. That is important. Your confidence. We'll continue to maintain confidence by, again, tying that in with the concept of self-love. Always keep the gratitude intact. That's of the utmost importance, okay? Next, once we have our self-love together, right, and we are grateful, that puts us best in a position to move forward on to the next step, which is developing a plan. If there's something specific or particular about yourself or your situation that you want to make changes to in a way that are healthy, develop a plan for yourself. Sit down. You don't even necessarily have to share it with anyone. You don't have to tell anyone. You can begin by doing research online. If you do have a trusted friend or confidant, you can bring that to them. If you've noticed that they had certain things or similar challenges and you're seeing them elevate and make positive change about it, feel free to reach out to them, but only once you're ready and you're confident enough, to speak on that insecurity in a way that's healthy and develop a plan, right? So that may entail you just doing research and coming up with a plan of attack. This may entail sitting down, pen and paper, and creating a list, a to-do list, or a plan for how we would look to address certain insecurities. And like I said, let's say, for example, if you had an insecurity about your appearance and your weight, put together a plan of attack. What's going to be your workout schedule? How are we going to begin to make changes to our diet? Put a plan together, apply yourself, be disciplined, and continue to work towards that goal. And I'm sure over time, you'll start to see positive change happen. But keeping in mind that patience is key. Don't expect overnight change and don't allow yourself to be discouraged because things aren't changing at a fast rate of speed. This is where gratitude and self-love come into play. And that'll make a big difference in preventing you from being discouraged and also just embracing the journey. It all ties into gratitude and understanding that the challenges that we go through in life are simply a journey. Once you retrain your mind to understand that this is a journey that we're on, it's not so much always about the future and the final destination. It's what's happening in the present in the journey, being present, taking advantage of the moment as much as you can, and understanding that the things that we're doing now are going to have an effect on things that happen for us later down the road. But be present and be in the moment. All right. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode where we discussed insecurities and how they affect us and ensuring that they don't become toxic to our character. Again, as always, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, and concerns. It has been a pleasure as always. Much appreciation and respect to everyone who's choosing to tune in. I really do appreciate it and do not take that for granted. I believe in you, so you be sure to do the same. Until next time, I'm Biz of Biz Lifestyle. This has been AudioPhiles, the AudioPod. Good vibes for all.